Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it
Hey guys, welcome in. Sorry, I'm losing lost my voice there for a minute. Welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you guys. I am going to move the camera a little bit, like this way, maybe. That way you can see me a little better. I don't know. We're going to switch things up here soon, but for now, this is a setup. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Tanya, or Titanium Built. My dog likes to get comfortable right when the live starts. So that's just her in the background getting comfortable on her chair. That's hers now. If you're new to the channel, my name is Tanya. Nice to meet you. You can call me Tanya or Titanium Built. Welcome back to all the returning Titans that are coming in. I appreciate you guys being here today. I really, really do. So hopefully we'll have a full house, But I wanted to let you guys know that I will be doing some more day lives. I miss seeing the people that we used to see during the day, because a lot of people are from different countries or they're different time zones, and they just want to go to sleep at 9:15 at night. So I'm trying to do some more day lives. That way the people can, come in and enjoy the lives as well. So I will be putting together a documentary on the Idaho 4 case. I'm going to go from the beginning of the case all the way through till the end. But I'm waiting on the discovery and all the documents that they may, release when the non-dissemination order is over on July 23rd. So we'll see what happens. And then I'm going to put that together and it'll be out here probably. And it'll probably take me a month or so probably to do it. No lie, because it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm going to get it done. I want to get it done. It's going to be a good project. So if you would like to become a member of our channel. I did pin the link up above so you guys can join if you would love to. We would love to have you. Think about it while we're doing the live. Also, if you appreciate today's case coverage, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll get into it. Actually, I have one more thing. Of course I do. One more thing. I do have a Patreon, and on my Patreon, I do have the new Peacock, Idaho documentary. It's about an hour and a half long. So if you guys want to go over there and check it out, it's there. It's available. So let's go ahead and paste. I'm going to paste the Patreon link in the chat. It's pretty long. I don't know why it's such a long link, but whatever. That's what we got. My computer's being weird. I wanted to move my computer over here. It was a whole thing today. So, but welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you. We are streaming on multiple platforms. So we're streaming on Facebook. I believe it's good over there. And we're streaming on Twitter. So if you're over on Twitter, welcome in. If you're over on Facebook, welcome in. And if you'd like to come over to YouTube and, subscribe to the channel, we'd love to have you. It's good to see you, Catherine. Hey, baby girl. Hey, Cuff You. I saw your comment. That's so sweet of you to say that you love this channel. It is a good channel. Hey, Petunia. Hey, Debbie. You never emailed me, I don't think. Let me know if you want to email me. Hey, Brian. Welcome in. Hey, Willows. Hey, ADM. It's good to see everybody. Everyone's up. See, everyone's awake. There's Tom. Who do I have to fight about this daytime shit? Hey, Pete. Hey, Susan. Hey, Dextery. Look at this. Me, Titanium Bill. Did I say hi to you, Pete? I think I did. It's good to see everybody in here. Look at that. It's like the regular crowd. Hey, get to the ducking point. Hey, Michael. Hey, Citizen Sleuth. Hey, Ice Cream. He does look like Ted Bundy, doesn't he? Calling ice, this is unacceptable. That's funny. Yeah, I know. They're gonna come get their I told him that, like, I think it was last night or the day before. I was like, I'm still waiting on them to come get you. Like, what are you doing? Just kidding. If anything ever happened, like with him, which nothing ever would, he was born in California. You would see me, I would be a mess. And I don't know what I would do. Because, like, if I ever have a problem, I go to Vincent, right? That's my person that I go to. I go to you guys for advice too, of course, but my person's Vincent. But if he was down and out, I would have to run to you guys. Hey, CJK, and be like, what do I do? Hey, Naomi. Hey, Cupcake. Oh, look at that. Debbie's been a member for 23 months. Oh, she said, thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate you, Debbie. I really do. That's a long time. That's almost 2 years. Wow. Hey, Sandy. And sorry I was a few minutes late. I deleted the members, like the join button, so I had to go find it, and it was a mess. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm late. Of course I am. But I did find a podcast that I thought might be pretty interesting. And I thought we'd go over the seating chart for Bryan Kohberger. So I actually printed it out so that I could see it better. So I could write kind of like who was where. The bottom section, we're going to guess on that together. But I think by the initials, we'll be able to know kind of who is who. The only person I know, though, in the front row is it looks like DM maybe, and Christy Gonzalez. I don't know. We'll have to see. But somebody was in court. So basically, I have the seating chart from, the court proceedings. And Chloe, one of the subscribers, I think she might be a member too. But Chloe, she sent it to me. And I think she gave it to Drunk Turkey or something as well. But I didn't know that she gave it to me. So I did, but I forgot to check my email. So I was like, oh, well, that's perfect. That's a Tanya move. That's a Tanya move. So I have it now. So we're going to go through it. And I guess that he did. So I told you guys, and I guess I was wrong. So when I heard through media sources that Bryan Kohberger didn't smile or didn't look at his parents the whole time that he was like in court. So they may have just missed it when he walked in. But this person said when she saw him walking in that he walked in and he smiled at his parents. So we'll see how, we'll see about that. So I went ahead and I put this in my pictures. That way it'd be better. So let me actually go find it though. To like put it over the screen. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to figure out a way I can like still see you guys. I have an idea. Okay, there we go. It's a good idea. Except for I have you guys in the wrong spot. Okay, so basically I'm going to go over who is who and all of that stuff. So whenever you walk in, let me actually zoom in on this. Why does it keep going behind here? It keeps wanting to like, oops. Okay. So here, okay, this is so much better than trying to use my trackpad, is where he entered. I don't know why it's like highlighted like that, sorry. But so Bryan Kohberger enters through here. This is where Judge Hippler is sitting. I should have pulled up the video so we could like reference that as well. Actually, maybe I should. I was going to see like. I was trying to find like maybe. Here's this. Okay. I'm trying to like find a picture of the. Hey, where'd that go? I needed that. Sorry, guys. I thought this would be like make it easier for you guys to like. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go back to the picture. And then here in a second, I'm going to show you guys this because this will be it. Okay. Okay, I was just making sure it was on there. Okay, so he entered through here. I guess he walked through, like I said, and he smiled at his parents. Then you have the defense table right here, which is going to be, let me actually share this with you. Oh, this is going to be weird. Okay. So defense table's here, and then prosecution table is over here. Now, I don't believe I know the person on the end here because she's not even on the seating chart, the lady with the blonde hair. So that's up for debate. I'm not sure who she is. So let me go ahead and go back to this. Okay. So we've got sitting at the table. If you go from, if you're looking at it, if you go from, to the right. So it's going to be Ann Taylor, Bryan Kohberger, Elisa Massiff, and then Bricka Barlow. And they're all going to be sitting right here. Then you have the court reporter. She's sitting over here chilling by herself. Like, it's a big courtroom, it looks like. Or she just drew it like it was kind of big. And then you have the prosecution table right here. And that's going to be Jeff Nye, Josh Hewitt, Bill Thompson, and then Ashley Jennings sitting there. And then you had the AP cameraman, which was the person that was just taking the still photography. It wasn't the person that was taking the video. It was just the person that was taking the pictures of like Bryan Kohberger. And I heard that he had like a huge camera and he was taking pictures. So that's where the AP cameraman was. The reason why they picked the AP is because they were the first like media to put in their request. so that they could take still photography. And so they got that, which I mean, is cool with me. So then you have seating over here. This is all the seating they had. This is a lot of seating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 35. Yeah. It's like 70. Okay. So we're going to start like over here. I think you can see my mouse. Yeah, I think you can. I'm trying to look at my MacBook or my iPad if you can. Okay, yeah, you can. Okay, so the M's, I believe, are all media. So this is all going to be media here. And then you've got BK's family, I believe. So I think that this is BK's father, maybe, BK's mother. But then it says BKF again. And then it says media. So I think that this is just somebody that was with like Bryan Kohberger. I'm assuming we had heard that one of his sisters had went. I just don't know which sister. I'm not sure. So if you guys know, let me know. And welcome in. Hey, Kaylee? Is it Kaylee? I don't know if that's, I'm probably saying that all wrong. Did I see someone say, is she's in here? There she is. Oh, you picked up because someone called in. Oh, man, she's probably such a great nurse, you know? Is she? You make me want to get sick so you could take care of me. Just kidding, knock on wood. Been there, done that. So this is media. So like, I don't know. To me, I would feel kind of like, if I was Bryan Kohberger's family, I would feel like weird if I had the media all around me, right? I don't know. I just would. But I did want to go over, actually, before we go over this, I'm so sorry. I wanted to go over the prosecutors and what kind of like what they did. So the prosecutors in the Bryan Kohberger case were Bill Thompson. He's the Latah County prosecuting attorney who led the case from the time that Bryan Kohberger was charged. We have Jeff Nye, a special assistant attorney general appointed to, appointed to assist in the case. I forgot about Ingrid. That's probably who that was, maybe. Ingrid Beatty, and she's a special assistant attorney general who was also appointed to provide expertise and resources. Josh Hewitt, who just came on, was a former United States attorney for the District of Idaho who joined the prosecution team, and he just joined like recently. And then we had Ashley Jennings, who's a senior deputy prosecutor in Latah County, who was involved in communications regarding the plea deal. So then we have the defense team. Sorry, my throat is like, I guess, dry or something. I don't know. But the defense team for Bryan Kohberger in this case included Ann Taylor, who was the lead public defender from the Kootenai County Public's Office. She now has her own private practice, but she was appointed as Kohberger's, attorney after his arrest because he was considered indigent. He didn't have any, funds to pay for a lawyer. And then we did have Jay Logston. He was the defense attorney who joined Taylor in representing Kohberger, notably involved in court proceedings and motions. He was there for a couple of court proceedings and motions, and then they kicked him kind of to the curb and brought in Bricka Barlow. So then we have Elisa Massive, a defense attorney who assisted in the case, particularly noted in discussions around plea negotiations and the court filings. And then we have Bricka Barlow, who joined Kohberger's defense team in 2025, February, and as confirmed by a court order from the district attorney, Judge Hippler, she replaced Jay Logston, who transitioned to consulting role and will not be representing Kohberger at trial, but there's no trial. So those are the, attorneys that were a part of the defense team and part of the prosecution team. It was it was a lot of people, right? A lot of people. I mean, personally, I think that's a whole lot of people. So we have media here, like we were talking about. BK's family, I'm assuming, like, I don't know, BKF, BKM would seem to me like mother, father. But then it says BKF again. So I'm not sure on that. We won't have to see AT anymore. Dionne Watch will like have a big case and she'll be back or something. So then you go over here, and these are just question marks. We're not sure who's there. And then it says DM, and then DM. I think that says DMM, like maybe Dylan Mortensen, and then Dylan Mortensen's mom. But I'm not sure. But I do believe that Dylan Mortensen was there. And then you've got Christy Gonzalez. I don't know who GD is. I forget her sister's name, but her sister's she might have been one of these ones that are the question mark, because I believe it was Christy's sister, right? That's Christy's sister that was there. Hey, Oopsie. He'll claim he didn't understand the question because he's autistic. No, well, they asked him, I mean, they asked him, and he said he understood it all. He said it like 60 times or something like that. So I hope not DM, because then we'll never know anything. But I have a feeling, like I believe that, I think that he may need to be like supervised for a while, right? Like I personally think he should be supervised. And let me know what you guys think over on X as well. I keep calling it Twitter. I can't help it. I'm like old, I guess. I'm just old. Okay, so I'm going to kind of zoom in on these so you guys can see the initials better. But yeah, so I don't know who like some of these are. If you guys know, let me know in the chat. But this is MFR. Oopsie, I didn't mean to hit that button. And then question mark. It says BF and then BFB and then BF. So like, is it Bethany Frank's boyfriend and then Bethany Frank? Maybe. And then you got HC, MC, SC, JC. And then back here, A, T, G, A, G, D, G, D, A, G, J, and M. Thank you. Okay, Ashley, thank you. So that is Dylan Mortensen's mom and Dylan Mortensen. Okay, I'm guessing over here. So, I mean, just take it with a grain of salt, but that's okay. So that's true. Okay. Elon probably did it. Yeah, Debbie. I think even the judge was like, he had a weird look like on his face when Bill Thompson said that, right? I'm wondering if like Bill wants to redact something, but he would have to have, I think he'd have to have the judge's permission to do that still, right? Yeah. So Bethany Funk, did I say something else? Did I call her something else? And then maybe Bethany Funk's boyfriend? And then MC. Trying to, oh, this right here. Wait, hold on a second. Okay, so we'd have to have Ethan Chapin's family members, and then we'd have to have, so that this is probably maybe the Chapins. And I don't know why I wish I would have put full names. Yeah, Maisie was there, Hunter was there. So that must be here. And they sat with Bethany, which is nice. And then they put Dylan, near the Gonzalez's, which was nice. Like that they weren't, I don't know, that they had like a family there to kind of, even though their family was with them, just like another family that, that was the victim's family to kind of help shelter them, because they have been helping, to keep these girls sheltered as much as they can. The internet has just went crazy. Did I say Frank? Oh my gosh. I thought I did. Right. I had Ruby Franking on my mind. Man. That's so funny. I'm sorry, it's not funny that I like confused or that I said her name wrong, but it's funny because I was like, I thought I was like, did I say Frank? Like Frankie or like Ruby? Oh, sorry, guys. I must have had it on my brain. I want to get her jail calls too. I wonder if they'll give them to us. There's so many people. If he revoked his plea, let me see. Is this in Idaho? Withdrawing a guilty plea after sentencing is very difficult. Before sentencing, a defendant can withdraw their plea if they can demonstrate just cause or excusable neglect. I don't think they're going to be able to, they're not going to be able to do that. After sentencing, they must show manifest injustice. The court must make the final decision, and the prosecution can argue for or against the motion. The defendant carries the burden of proof in this scenario. Wow. Okay. Yeah, they have to because they have to establish either just cause or excusable neglect. Okay. Very, very interesting. That's interesting. Okay. How do I get back to this thing? Okay. So this is the seating chart that I had. I'm going to try to get the names a little better for us. I don't have my thinking cap on. I need my thinking cap. Yeah, I'm trying to think of exactly. I'm trying okay, who could be who? But so we know that Bethany was here. The Gonzalez's were in the front row. The Chapins were in the third row. Maybe the Mogans. That might have been a whole row of people because they had a lot of people. Do you remember they came out of the courthouse and they made that statement, and there was a good bit. Oh, sorry, I didn't hit the mic, but there was a good bit of them. So maybe that's them, the Mogan family. And then they had more media in the back. Now I know when they had when they got up to leave, they let the family members get up first. And where I was listening to Drunk Turkey, and there was a girl in there. She said that the father of Bryan Kohberger, Michael, looked really kind of distraught. He was kind of just distraught. And I don't know what she said about the mom. I don't remember. I don't think she said anything really about the mom. Now, I do think that his mom would probably be freaking out. You know what I mean? Freaking out. But I mean, I would be. So basically, he walked in through here. He smiled. He sat down at this table. We had the cameraman pointed right at him. He was point the camera this way. Don't point this way. You know what I mean? Don't point at the family members. Make sure you just do a straight shot, apparently. So that's what they told him to do. And that's what he ended up doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but okay. Well, there we go. I'll stop sharing this screen and then I'll share another screen. Yes, thank you, Ashley. Oh, good. Good question. I didn't see any of her family there. Yeah, up until sentencing. But it said today it's very hard to withdraw it. He has to prove injustice, unjust cause. Okay, he has to say that that he didn't get either. Okay, I'm trying to think of how to say it. The judge didn't give him direction on what he was doing, or his lawyer, didn't tell him exactly what he was pleading to. Those type of things. But the judge went over it in such great detail and asked him every single time for every single murder if he knew what he was doing and if he was aware of what he was pleading to. And somebody counted that he said yes 60 sometimes. So he was very aware of what he was doing. He stood up at first because he knew that's what you're supposed to do finally. But he sat back down before the judge even said anything. He sat down and then the judge thanked him for standing up. Oh, you can sit down. He was already sitting back down. After he got sworn in, he was going to sit back down. He sat back down. I was like, okay, I didn't catch that at first. Catch that on the second time. Now, I think that his parents probably are very devastated. I don't know about his mom now. I mean, his mom is probably really devastated. She probably is just in shock and can't even speak, maybe, Maybe that's the reason why she looks kind of just cold and not like, like that's what they said, like she appeared like not cold, but like she just didn't have any expression. So maybe she's still in shock, right? Yeah, he was questioned very thoroughly, in my opinion. Nothing would surprise me in this case. Hey, Courtney. I'm like, nothing would surprise me. Okay. So I wanted to play this podcast. I thought it was going to be pretty good. I haven't got to listen to all of it yet. So if it's not good, we'll turn it off. Is there anything else that I was going to read this? I was going to look over this really quick. Okay. Let's look over this real quick. This came out earlier. And I was like, what is this about? Well, it came out at 4 a.m. So we'll listen to Chris Mahogany. We'll see what he says on Kohberger's plea deal. He's the guy that used to be on like the ID channel. He's done like, I don't know what exactly. He's a psychologist or so. I don't know exactly what he is, but he's something like that. He works in the mental health field. And he classifies like murders and he puts them on like this certain chart. He had a show on the ID channel. It was so good. He would like categorize like serial killers and he would put them on a chart from like 1 to like 25, like how bad they are. And like, he would like discuss it. It was a really good show. I forget what it's called though. Hey, PKC. Hey, Betsy. I didn't say hi to you earlier.
Dr. Chris Mohandi here.
Oh, and if you guys don't mind, take a second and hit the like button. We're at 48 likes and we have 82 people in here, if you guys don't mind.
Here, weighing in on the Idaho murder plea bargain agreement in which the offender was allowed to make a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. I have a number of concerns about this, not the least of which is that all victims' families were not adequately consulted for their thoughts and feelings about it. And in particular, some of the commentary that they had is especially relevant. The offender did not have to give any confession or explanation or narrative of what actually happened. So when the families raised a concern of, well, what if he, alleges that somebody else was involved? What if he does that down the road? These are concerns. We don't know what actually happened other than what the evidence thus far has shown. The other problem is the whole, waiving rights to appeal. That's basically nonsense because at some point laws change, case law changes, and who knows, someday it may be unconstitutional for a person to waive their rights of appeal. So the idea that this is, a done deal, I believe that this was kicked down the road by the prosecution.
Yeah, me too.
I think they took the easier, softer way out.
This is Chris Mahogany. He's like a psychiatrist. He's like more than that, but he knows what he's talking about.
It's problematic. I think they could have done a heck of a lot better job on the details of said plea bargain agreement. The other problem is, as time goes on, these kinds of things morph and evolve. We've seen a lot of cases that down the road, a new law comes up and so forth that leads to revisiting sentencing decisions. And this guy has not, tied himself to a statement of what actually happened. So down the road, he could make up something and at that point tell it to some news person or somebody making a movie, a TV production, and then all this sympathy, will come for him potentially. Maybe he gets benefit in other ways from it. And I think it's important to tie him to a story of what actually happened, vet that story, as opposed to what's happened here. I think what's happened here is that this offender's playing the long game. And someday, I believe that he'll capitalize upon that opportunistically. This plea bargain, I believe, was ill-conceived and a real problem.
Okay. So I'm going to give you guys the option. Let me see. Let me do. Oh, okay. Oh, that sucks. I took the page off. Okay. I'm going to do a poll. Just because it'll be fun. So there are 2 new videos out for Bryan Kohberger. Trying to see where. Okay. Okay, so okay, do you guys want to watch Ashley Banfield's channel? She just came out with a new like it's on her channel, so it's like her podcast channel. So that's I think the bottom one. She just came out with that an hour ago, and it is it says, I predict he'll last 1 year, how Bryan Kohberger's prison reality could be worse than death row, which I can kind of agree on that. Or we can watch the podcast that I was telling you about. And it just says, that a recent bombshell dropped in the 2022 murders of 4 Idaho University students. As the sole defendant in this case, Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to the vicious crime in a very surprising decision. Today, we delve into everything concerning it and more with one of my favorite people to talk about true crime, Barstool, sports own. Trying to think, I don't know where it's at. Oh, Casey Smith, sorry. So it's a podcast, and just let me know what you guys think. And if you have any questions, let me know also. And I'm going to do something while we're waiting. I appreciate you guys all being here, and thanks for being like patient and being like, okay, we're going to do a little thing here. We're doing it. So we're doing a poll. Okay, so I'm going to go over to X real quick. Oh, let me turn that down. Okay. I just wanted to see what was going on over there. Okay. Gotcha. Hey, Marianne. Where'd I put did I really exit out of that after I did it? Oh my gosh, goodness gracious. Oh, I had some stuff actually I wanted to tell you guys about. So I wanted to talk about his dad and his dad buying the plane ticket over to Spokane. I got a little bit I talked with someone and they gave me a little bit of information on that, so I can give a little more information on that to you guys. But so basically, his dad came to Pullman to get him, and he flew in to airport to Spokane, Washington. It was a 9-hour flight with a layover in Chicago. His dad his dad arrives in Spokane, and Bryan drives, 75 miles to pick him up. They go to Pullman to grab a few things and then immediately leave to go back to Pennsylvania. The new stuff that I found out was his dad flew out December 11th. He bought the ticket on December 10th, right after the Bolo came out. Finals were going to be on the 12th. So why wouldn't you stay for finals? Like, to me, that's weird, right? Like, I guess you could turn in your final paper early. I mean, that's, I guess you could. So maybe Bryan told his dad he turned in all of his papers early and he was done with school. I'm not sure. But they left on the 13th because his flight got canceled, and then that's when he flew to Spokane. So he flew in at 9:34. His dad did. It's about 2.5 hours away from Pullman. So they would get home around 12 midnight or so, because usually you have to wait on the person to get off the plane, collect their bags, do all those things, right? Before they come out to like the car. So if he flew in and he landed at 9:34 or 9:35 or whatever, then it would take a few minutes to get all that stuff and then get out the door. So I don't understand why they wouldn't just fly back. It would be cheaper than going cross country. His dad got his ticket for like $5.68. Don't know how he did that. Must have had some points or something, but he did it. So remember when we heard that he was like scared of flying? Do you remember that? Are you serious? I can't find an article or anything anywhere that says that he's scared of flying. I think that like a lot of in the beginning, we heard a lot of stuff and we just absorbed it. You know what I mean? And we were just like, oh yeah, that's like, then we we're like, oh yeah, that's what we heard. Because I can't find it anywhere. So if anyone can find it, if anyone knows where it's at, just let me know and I'll go get it. I'll go find it. But I was just really curious about that because I don't remember ever really seeing that, and I don't remember where I heard it because it's been so long ago. It's been like forever. So I don't know if he was scared to fly. So then I asked Vincent, because Vincent's taken the trip from California, from LA, all the way to Michigan, Ann Arbor. So that's a long drive. Pretty much the same drive as Kohberger, right? So Vincent said that his trip, and this was like in 2012 and 2013. So things were a lot cheaper back then, right? Gas and stuff was just cheaper. But he said for gas, he only had to pay $250. And he drove, what did he drive out here? Maybe his BMW. I don't know. But it was $250. And then for food, he spent $20, he said, about $20 per day. And he didn't have a hotel. He said he slept in his car, which I was like, you slept in your car? That thing ain't that comfortable. If you took the BMW, it's okay, but it has like bucket seats. It's not that comfortable. But he said he slept in his car. So his total was only $330, right? To travel cross country. But still, I think that his dad it would just be beneficial. It'd be just better to fly. The weather was terrible. They had to drop down, go through Colorado to go the other way. You know what I mean? Like, why not just fly? There's a reason, I swear, that Bryan wants to take that car. He probably gave every excuse under the sun why he had to bring the car back, right? Maybe he said, I don't know. I don't know what he said. Yeah, right, Elliot. Yeah. And I'm sure when he first went out there, like, I guess they probably drove him out because he had things that he would want to take, right? I wonder if they did. I wonder if they drove him out or if he flew out when he came out here the first time, like when he first came to school. That's what I think, baby girl. I think he wanted to get out of the area because that bolo came out and he was like, oh, like, I think he didn't know about the bolo, but I think he knew that people were looking for the white Hyundai Elantra. Like, he knew what we knew on the internet, right? He was looking. He was searching. And everybody would be. Okay, let's see where the poll is. Okay, we'll do the podcast. And then I'll put up pictures, that way you guys have something to look at. But this is on Apple, so it's like a little bit different. And I think that this is right where they started talking about it, around the 2-minute, 30-second mark. If not, I'll go back a little bit. And thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to hit the like button. I appreciate you guys.
in true crime, you haven't forgotten about it. But if you're just like a regular person who maybe glances or checks out true crime, kind of backtrack. We've
I'll go
in
back a
this,
little bit.
which again,
There
we
we
talk a
go.
lot about organized crime. We talk about all sorts of things here. But this week, true crime really been on the forefront. If you're a fan of true crime, whether it's the Diddy case or the Idaho murder case, there was news galore in this. And with these two cases, Diddy obviously was found not guilty on 3 to 5 charges, which maybe we'll do an episode on in the future. I want to probably bring on one of our favorite attorneys at some point to talk about that. But today, I wanted to kind of backtrack. We've done some episodes in the past on the Idaho murders, which I think a lot of people kind of forgot about. I mean, at least I think if you're in true crime, you haven't forgotten about it. But if you're just like a regular person who maybe glances or checks out true crime, this case happened, going on 3 years ago. But sounds like we have a very sad, I think, ending, at least for the families in this case, as Bryan Kohberger has decided to plead guilty. We're going to delve into why. We're going to delve into why the prosecution offered a plea in this case. I want to get into some of the leaking that went on with this gag order, just all the stuff that went on. I want to talk about why I think Kohberger did this. And in the end, I was wrong on this case. I, for a long period of time, did not think that the evidence presented, at least for the first couple of months, meant that there was going to be a guilty verdict here. I thought it would be hard to prove this. But as the case went on, and I know our guests will agree, we started hearing more and more leaking. The case became more and more, I think, hard to win. I think I will say this. When I really started to have doubt on maybe, like, I thought they were gung-ho, the defense, but when they threw out the alibi or lack thereof of an alibi, it almost seemed like maybe they were beginning to throw in the white towel. But let's get someone else's opinion here, too. Let's bring her in. She's mostly a sports person like me, but I think she has an interest in true crime and crime just like I do. It's Casey Smith, Barstool Sports. Casey, you and I we've sparred at times on this. I know some of your colleagues as well haven't exactly seen eye to eye with my opinion on this case, but you and I talked the other day. I thought you'd be a great person to bring on. Neither of us are lawyers. We're not cops. We're just people that have an interest in true crime. Casey, this case has a resolution. How you doing? And thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, I'm great, Nadu. I was saying this, before I jumped on your spaces the other day when we watched the hearing for Bryan Kohberger. I thought you and I would go at it for maybe like 10 minutes. And I looked down and we were on for an hour and a half talking about this case. And I mean, first of all, it was, and I say a ton of fun. Obviously, it's a very sad situation and it's real life. But it also really proves that, like you said, we're both sports people. We don't have any degrees in criminology or law or crime or anything like that. But there's something about this specific case that I think really speaks to what we were talking about, because the whole nation was captivated by it.
Yeah.
Now it's like all this buildup after all these years. And here we are just kind of like with our hands in the air, like, what? Like, how is this the ending to this? So I'm excited to talk to you about it again.
Yeah, so like on this, like I've done 220-ish episodes here, and like this was one of the only true crime cases that I've went this deep into. I mean, again, I generally am looking into organized crime and things of that nature, but I mean, this case, we had an FBI agent on about this case. We've really delved into it. And listen, I want to say from the beginning, and I've always been steadfast, I always want justice for the innocent people, the families of these people. And if someone is guilty of a crime, they need to pay. I've always been steadfast in that. And my whole thought always was, at least initially, it seemed that there was not only questionable methods of finding this individual, but also outside of the knife sheath, I thought they could maybe get that thrown out. Number two, outside of that, there was really very little evidence against Bryan Kohberger outside of circumstantial stuff. But as the case went on, let's just kind of go back, though. November 13th, 2022, what exactly happened? 4 University of Idaho college students were brutally murdered in their off-campus house at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. Now, like any college town, a bunch of people around, but this is more of a remote community. This isn't exactly more like, like a Big Ten college town or like some sort of SEC college town. It is a bit more remote. It's in Idaho, if you will. So these 4 people are brutally taken out to the point of, blood was leaking out of the foundation of the home. That's how much blood there was in this case. Just a very depraved and gruesome scene. All sorts of questions, all sorts of rumors arose. They didn't have a suspect for about a month. And then all of a sudden, this kid, PhD, Bryan Kohberger, he's trying to get his PhD in criminology, shows up. All sorts of things happen. And 3 years later, we're here, and trial was set to begin, Casey. This trial was set to begin in approximately a month or so. There had been some continuations. They're making sure everybody was prepared. And I want to start with, leading up to this, you mentioned to me, and you made a great point, how many documentaries have we seen for a case that has a gag order, which means a gag order essentially means that no one is to talk about a criminal case. So
I should add up all of the documentaries that we've put on this channel over the last 2.5 years, because he's right. Everybody has done a documentary on this case.
it's a court order which restricts parties, lawyers, or even witnesses from publicly discussing specific aspects of the case, and it's aimed to prevent prejudicial information from influencing jurors and ensuring a fair trial, which we had for a period of time. You'd see occasional info that came out, but then all of a sudden, as you told me, like, Dateline comes out, and then we see all this like stuff being leaked, and it's like, first of all, who's leaking that? And then we see the house was knocked down that the murders occurred in. You have to admit, this has been a bizarre investigation and then trial lead up in general.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And I mean, even just the fact that it's been almost 3 years, I mean, 2.5 years, I guess, because it's still the summer and it happened, going into the winter break. But just every delay that happened, it seemed like more information came out from the media, or, obviously all these documentaries are being made. And I've just, like, as somebody who from day one has thought that this man did it, as soon as they arrested him and information started coming out and all that. And that's where you and I had, we'd spar back and forth playfully, like, because I'd be really bad to be on a jury, especially a jury like this, because to me, all the circumstantial evidence put together a puzzle, like each puzzle piece put together a puzzle. But every documentary that came out, Nadu, it was like no one else thought that there was anybody else involved. Like, that's what, whether it was Dateline, whether like the was it Peacock that just came out this week, the 60 Minutes, everything, it was always so focused on him, which, as somebody who thought he was guilty from day one, was like, oh, okay, yeah. But there wasn't even a question in these documentaries. There wasn't even like, well, maybe he didn't do it. Maybe there's somebody else out there. I've just never seen anything like that. And you can't put a gag order on social media, right? We know TikTok was heavily involved in this, Instagram sleuths, YouTube investigators. But the fact that these mainstream media companies were putting these things out, to me, it was like, how in the world are you ever going to find a jury that's not heard a word about this?
Yeah, that's
in the beginning.
And to me, this is why, and I've said this before, I think in our lifetime, we're going to see major challenges that come to the legal system, because it's impossible, as you just said, to give someone a fair trial in this day and age, because the court of public opinion up until 10 to 20 years ago was, there was no, it was just what TV showed you, right? Nowadays, as you alluded to, everybody can do this. Everybody can start a show. Everybody can go on Reddit with a fake account and talk about stuff. And the court of public opinion is always going to side with the families, obviously, right? People don't like criminals, and they don't want them in society, especially ones like Bryan Kohberger, who possibly violently killed people. But this is why I've always said, like, I want a trial, I want fair judicial stuff to come out. But I think you're 100% right. Throw in the fact that businesses like, Dateline or whatever, it's about money in the end. People will watch it. I saw, for instance, Casey, on the Daily Mail, which is a publication out of the UK, that site is free, but I've noticed all information, at least this week, on the Idaho murders, guess what you have to do to see it?
To pay.
Right.
So, and even like the websites that are like, well, technically this isn't a paywall, but if you want to throw some donations, and it's like, we know what you're doing here. I mean, and not even that, even like old school sit down hardcover books. Like that. I read multiple books. Like Howard Bloom put one out. There was another one called like When Idaho Slept. Like all the different books that came out with all the information.
We read both of those on the channel. So if you'd like to listen to those, the Howard Bloom one is a little further back in my playlist because it came out, a little while ago. What the heck did I just do? Uh-oh, I think I messed it up. I did. Want to replay it, but so and then we read the Howard Bloom book, and then we read the other book as well. Accidentally hit back. So sorry.
Now more.
Is your Idaho murder
We were
case?
like,
Admit, this has been a
Old school sit down hardcover books.
yes,
Like that,
Howard Bloom.
I read multiple,
So-
and even like those the websites that are like, well, technically this isn't a paywall, but if you want to throw some donations, and it's like, we know what you're doing here. I mean, and not even that, even like old school sit down hardcover books.
Yes,
Like that,
Howard Bloom.
I read multiple books. Like Howard Bloom put one out. There was another one called like When Idaho Slept. Like all the different books that came out with all the information over the last couple of years. And it was
Casey,
just
do you
like,
know how many people on YouTube have built
Huh.
their channels off of this case itself?
oh, I can only imagine. I mean, you and I have talked about this, off air. We've talked
Not
about it
me.
on, Spaces and Twitter and whatever else. Like I've never been a true crime person. I've never obviously I paid attention to different cases, like the Casey Anthony case. I remember when I was young in college watching that. I was
they build their cases off sports. I'm just gonna say that.
too young to remember OJ, but obviously have now since paid more attention to it. But this is the first one for me that caught my attention to the point where I was going to look at those YouTube videos. I was looking at TikTok, and I'm not even a TikTok person, and because I feel washed at as in my mid 30s, and I'm watching every second of this. I'm like, yeah, if you wanted to become a big time true crime person, you could build an entire career off of the Idaho cases.
Why
because
do
that's
you-
how much information was out of there.
Why do you think and I'll tell you that I know the answer, but I would ask you, like, what about this case made you so enamored with it? Like, why do you think society was so drawn to this? Was it, and I'll just be real, is it because the people looked the way they did? And it just kind of, because again, like, I hate to say this, and I'm just going to bring it up. I mean, last night in Philadelphia, 3 people were killed and 12 were injured in one shootout. Nobody will even know that existed, other than if you lived in Philadelphia. Like, I guess that's my, like, I wonder, like, what draws people to this? Do you think it is really just because of how the people look?
I think there's an element of that. And I definitely think that, they were all very attractive people too.
Yeah.
They were young, they were in college. And I think, for me, it was not that it was easy to put myself in a position where my friends would have been murdered, because obviously that's not at all what it felt, but it was very easy to put myself in
It was
a position,
relatable.
yeah, like a party house, and you're in your 20s, and you're just
Yeah.
becoming an adult, and it's like, and all of a sudden it's this, and like you mentioned, it's rural Idaho. It's not a big party school, and even if it was a big party school, I think it'd still be a big story. But that college kind of American dream of these gorgeous 4 people who not only were brutally murdered, that there wasn't a suspect, there wasn't somebody right away. So it was like, wow, in this tiny, quiet, sleepy, frozen town, we don't know what's going on. And I actually didn't really get super on board with what was, like, I knew that it had happened because obviously it was all over social media, and I work at Barstool, so I'm going to see that. Until they arrested Bryan Kohberger, I didn't necessarily have as much of an interest in it. Until then, I was obviously like, okay, that's what the fuck's going on. But then once they arrested him, and you saw his face, and you saw, that he was all the way in Pennsylvania when they caught him and all this, then it was like, why? I think that was why. And unfortunately, with so many things that happen in this like depraved world, with shootings and everything, it's like there's so much information that goes on. This one was very unique, I think. And I think that's another reason why people caught on to it. But then now, because it took so long and it's not even going to go to trial now, it was just like every month that went by and there was more information that came out, it was like almost the people forget about it. But if you were invested in the case, it's almost like building up even more. But I do think that you're right. I think there's an element of the age of the students, the way that they looked, where it happened, and that we didn't know for almost a month who did it. And then it's a guy that comes out that's a 28, 29-year-old white guy that's just in Pennsylvania that wanted to study criminology. You're like, what? What is this?
Well, I think it also generally leads to like the thought of a word that I hear probably daily at this point, whether it's social media or whatever, is the term incel, right? I mean, that's become a very well-known way to describe someone. And I think we could all be honest right away. This guy had incelish vibes, right?
Sure.
He had we had found out that, by talking to people that knew him, and, he wasn't exactly, popular with women, I guess you could say. As you alluded to, these were attractive women. And that's when I want to talk about motive, like why he did this. I think that could lend a lot to why he did this. I also want to get into the plea and that sort of thing. But I want to go back to why a lot of people have come to me, and some people have said, "Oh, you're an idiot. I cannot believe you actually thought he was not guilty." And I do want to backtrack a little and just make it clear. This case per se was a lot different than most, right? If you look at most cases, you have various things, whether it be a murder weapon, audio or video, especially nowadays. It's almost impossible to not be caught on video or audio at the scene of a crime, right? There's cameras everywhere. See, even in like a remote place like this, there are door cameras, there are ring cameras. Someone had to have seen something. Throw in the fact there were no witnesses other than one person who said she saw a person that resembled Kohberger. That said, we do know she was probably still drunk and or high. And this is the same person, an innocent person who wasn't killed, that did not call the police ever at any point in this situation and just went back to sleep. So that's more of my thought. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. Now, there is the fact that we found out in the plea deal that Mr. Kohberger had pinged in that vicinity a lot, okay, which doesn't say that he did this, but it definitely hurts him. Throw in the fact, number two, they were looking for a Hyundai Elantra. Could be his car, could not be his car. But the worst piece of evidence against Mr. Kohberger, and a question that I'll have for you, is the knife sheath, obviously. That was the smoking gun, if you will. They didn't have the knife, but it had a knife sheath.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, done.
Best finance platform.
The knife sheath, right? So
Performance. Join the 30,000 companies.
Say, and we know now after the plea deal that Kohberger, the day after the murder, went back to the scene. Okay. We know that he was likely going there to retrieve the knife sheath because a very smart guy made one very crucial mistake. If the knife sheath wasn't dropped, and let's say Kohberger left there, do you agree with me that this case would have been nearly impossible for them to win?
Yeah, I think it would have been incredibly difficult, even with, and I know, again, it's circumstantial, and in any time it gets in front of a jury, it has to be without a reasonable doubt. The one thing that, especially, again, these documentaries, the more that have come out, the more surveillance we've seen, which again goes back to what gag order are we talking about? Because clearly somebody's leaking it. But you see his car, which you're right, you never see him in it, but you see that the same car he drives without a front license plate, going back and forth in front of the house around the same times and pulling back, all of these different things that led it to find Bryan Kohberger. But then without that sheath, without that touch DNA there, how they could have really said, hey, we know he did this. Even if you put all of that circumstantial evidence into one big puzzle, which again, I believe even without the knife sheath would have said, hey, this guy is the guy that did it. To make that crucial mistake with otherwise what it seemed like a perfect crime, which we know as a studying criminology, he had been very interested in for a long time about exactly how to, cover up. When I say cover up, he was posing it as like, how do you investigate criminal?
I agree with her about the knife sheath. I think that really did him in.
Criminal scenes and crime scenes and all that. But losing that sheath, Jeff, says to me that something went wrong when he went to go do what he went to do. And I know you and I have talked about this, and there's a lot of speculation around this and theories around this, but what was the motive? I truly believe he went to murder one of those girls on that top floor. I believe that he was either watching her or following her or casing the house to see what her normal routine was. And to his surprise, there were two girls in that room. And because of that, everything spiraled out of control for him. And he went to go kill one person, ended up killing four because they were in his way. And that's why that knife sheath was left. And that's where it all went wrong, because everything else was too perfect. There was too much covered up for him to just accidentally leave that behind unless something went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you kill 4 people, I mean, I also just looked at like the amount of time that he allegedly did this in. It seemed almost impossible for a
Crazy.
person who had never killed someone before, as far as we know, to kill 4 people that quickly. And remember, the one thing that also lent to the fact that maybe he didn't do this was, number one, outside of the knife sheath, there was no physical DNA that he was even there. There was no blood, there was no hair, there was no latents. There was nothing around the house that warranted that he was there. His car had no blood or anything in it. His home, it was no different. The problem that he had, again, was a very smart guy, but this was a very violent murder. And the truth is, things can fall off during the commission of this. He didn't even realize it. He also just happened to be, at least, and I don't want to say anything good about him, but he was a bit unlucky here. If he'd have got there an hour before, he could probably found a way to get into that house and get that sheath. I also don't, and you mentioned killing 4 people. I think most of them were collateral damage. I think his goal was to go in and kill Gonsalves, which he did, but he encountered her best friend who just happened to be in the same room. He then left.
I don't think that's what happened. In my opinion, he was there for Maddie, because why would he go straight into Maddie's room, right? If he went in there and he saw them, like I said before, if he creeped in there and he saw 2 people and he wasn't ready to commit 2 murders, he would have just walked back out of that house that night.
Encountered Kernodle, killed her, and then I think encountered the boyfriend. They were collateral damage. My question, though, is also, if you were doing it and just had to do it because they were there and they knew too much, how do you leave Dylan Mortensen alive? Because he obviously saw her.
That's been one of the biggest questions that has frustrated me. As you know, again, I'm 36 years old. I have a 2-year-old son. It's been a long time since I was in college, but anytime I would see somebody say, well, she's young, she's a kid, she was in shock. And I'm not taking that away from her. She's also a victim in this, obviously did not lose her life, but both of those surviving roommates have been through an unspeakable tragedy. I've never understood that, and why the police weren't called to the next day. And I know we can get to that, but the only thing I can come up with, and I will say that, the Dateline episode that came out earlier this summer, that was such a problem for the defense, because that was, you saw more surveillance tapes than you'd ever seen of his car. You heard more stories about, his random Hinge dates and like his relationships with women, that he was working with at Washington State, and all of those different things. One of the things that really stood out to me was that, Xana apparently was not only awake, she was out of her room, and she had potentially heard what was going on upstairs, that he then had to chase her down the stairs. She tried to wake Ethan up. He kills her in, the doorway of her room. Ethan apparently, from what it sounds like, was passed out to a certain degree, because again, they're college kids. They had been at a Sigma Chi party that night. Whether he woke up or not, he gets killed. And then Bryan Kohberger is so exhausted that he takes a seat in a small chair in Xana's room for probably only a few seconds, right? But that was kind of what the evidence had looked like, was that he was there. The only thing I can think of, Jeff, is that maybe when he was on his way out, he was so fucking exhausted from killing 4 human beings as fast as he did, which again, I do believe as well, it was collateral damage, that somehow he did not see Dylan in that hallway. Because, you see a lot of these 3D, walkthroughs, or even like they do kind of what his point of view would have been.
I agree with her.
There is a potential that he was so one-track minded to get out of that house that she's standing there frozen in shock and he just doesn't see her. Because otherwise, I don't understand how she wasn't murdered as well.
Yeah, I think, when we go to motive, I'll talk about this, but I will say, I think there are 2-pronged, one of which was, I think he did think he was smart and could get through this and get past it and get away with it. The one mistake a smart kid made was he left the sheath. He dropped the sheath, whatever. But one thing that I also had a lot of questions on, and Dylan Mortensen throughout this has been very questionable. Her behavior has been weird, straight up, because I can understand being absolutely scared and you're young and you don't have a weapon to defend yourself. But then that gets thrown out of the window when you decide to A, just go to sleep,
Yes.
or B, as well, text the other remaining roommate about what's going on. You then never call the cops, and throw in about 3 months ago, I think it was around spring, early spring, the defense and Taylor, Kohberger's lawyer, stated that they had said this multiple times, exculpatory evidence that would not put Kohberger at the scene. And with her behavior, I'd wondered, maybe, did she know him? Did she lie and say something?
They would have put that out there.
Her behavior was very questionable, and they would never have put her on the stand because she was not believable. That's why the only witness you had was not believable, and she didn't call the police. Throw in the fact that I don't understand. And look, I've seen far too many videos, Casey, on the internet that have scarred me, that I wish I never would have seen. I've seen people be brutally murdered, cut their head, stuff like that. It is very difficult to A, do that, and B, the amount of blood in that house, you would smell it. It was so potent. Like, to just go to sleep, to me, is insane. Look, I think I hope she has a very quiet life. It'll probably be very difficult for her. I also think she should thank God that she was very lucky. I mean, very lucky. I mean, she should, sadly have probably faced the same fate, because this guy had no real throw in. I think you're right. I mean, maybe he just thought, she probably didn't see enough of me anyway. It's all good.
I really think there's a possibility now that he was ready to get the fuck out of there, right?
Yes,
exactly. We've seen the car speeding away, that maybe there isn't an element where he didn't see her, but I completely agree with you. And it was really hard for me, again, these are 19, 20, 21-year-old kids and whatever, but you and I talked about this on the space we did the other day. I put myself in this position as much as I can. And obviously you never know what you'll do in anything until you're in the position. So I can't speak with 100% certainty, but I know that in that situation, even if I was absolutely shit-faced, right? Like at college, you're blackout, you're drunk, you're partying, you've got nothing to worry about, that it would be very hard for me. Let's say even if somehow she did go back into her room and pass out, which now we know she didn't do. Now we know she ran down to the bottom floor.
Right.
But how do you not wake up the next day and say, hey, I haven't heard from any of the other roommates in this. I've got to go either check on them or call somebody if I don't want to go out. And I also have said that even if I was absolutely terrified that I didn't want to speak, just in case someone was still in the house at that night, go in your room, just dial 911 and leave the phone, or call or text somebody else and just say, hey, something's going on. And then we find out, I don't know exactly who reported this, but again, the gag order doesn't exist, that both of those surviving roommates were on their phones at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And I understand you rot in bed when you're hungover. I understand when you're in college and it's a Sunday, you don't have anything to do, but you're calling your dad. And my dad would be like, hello, I'm going to call the police. Then
also, Casey, if I'm a defense attorney, I would ask Miss Mortensen one question. If you were so scared.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping but savings.
She didn't have a weapon to defend herself. So that's out.
Help, you say.
Her option is to call the police. Like, that would be the only question I'd ask her, honestly. There's nothing more. We don't need to hear anything you say, because as you just said, she was able to call other people, but not the police. It was very odd. Like,
there's also the two-sided prong of like, okay, if a lot of people said, well, she was shit-faced, she didn't really know. Okay, that might be true. And there have been plenty of times, again, unfortunately, where, especially in college, like you do have people that pass out, they wake up the next day and they say, well, what happened last night? What did I do? I mean, I've been there, not proud of it, but I've been there. But then if that's the case, then how do you have the memory of saying, okay, I see this athletically built, bushy eyebrow, all black? Like, it's one or the other. And I hate even, putting it in a position where I'm like harsh on her or another college kid, but those are fair questions that the defense could have used. And I mean, I know we're going to talk about the plea deal, but my question is, when I watched the plea deal hearing, and I, infuriated for especially the Gonzalez family and how they're feeling, it's like, this might have been the best case scenario, because I'm not sure that prosecution would have been able to seal up all of these questions in a trial, because there are so many questions that we have as the public, even as somebody who 1000% thought he did it before he said the words himself. Bryan Kohberger committed these crimes. And could they have proven to 12 people without a reasonable doubt when the only witness, her story kept changing? And why were the cops not called until noon the next day? It makes no sense.
100% agree. Let's talk about the plea deal. Obviously, I mean, I've heard shocked. Why make a deal with the devil? Families aren't happy. Obviously, they shouldn't be. This is anything but justice. That's what one of the families stated. And I think you're right in terms of, from the beginning, whoever handled this case seemed, look, they don't handle a lot of cases like this in that area. They don't have many murders, especially very complex murders like this. This was moved, change of venue. Didn't seem like anyone had interest in even taking it to trial. They knocked the house down. I mean, judges were changed. Judges were tired. Now, in the end, they offer a plea and basically say, okay, we won't pursue the death penalty. You plead guilty, admit to this. You're going to get life, but, no death penalty. Now, I've always said I've never understood pleading to life in prison without parole. I don't get the point in that, especially when, most states don't execute people for decades. Throwing the appeals process, it could be 30 years till Mr. Kohberger is executed. I think there's more, though, to this, and we're starting to hear that a plea was offered. I think they believed this was the best outcome because I think they knew, you're right, like it would have been hard. Certain things would have come up. But I think Bryan Kohberger's family, I'm beginning to think that maybe they would have been affected by if he was defiant and remained defiant and said, I'm taking this to trial, see what happens. We're starting to hear that 2 hours after the murder, so approximately 6 a.m. the next day, Kohberger called his mother, and she would have had to get on the stand and discuss that phone call. Throw in, I mean, the father, I think maybe was under a little scrutiny. Were they involved? Not obviously in the murder, but, covering up things. I think he probably knew that it wasn't really going to be good for his parents. And if he was going to save anybody, your parents would be the ones you save. I think on both ends, this, particularly for the prosecution, it works out. He's going to do life. And I will tell you, Casey, and I told you this the other day, I think he's perfectly fine with this. There were two options he had, was to either beat the case and be defiant, and he won, and he would look like the smartest guy in the room. Or number two, this was a consolation prize. If anything, I'm going to go to jail for life. But number one, I'm infamous. I'll be the guy everybody always, everybody knows. And I've told you, this is what killers look at. Okay. You even see it in the mob. You see it in street gangs. People want to be known as fucking tough guys. And in this case, he wanted to be known as, I'll live forever in doing this. I'll finally get noticed. A guy who had never been noticed, a guy who had trouble with women. He was just kind of a normal, ordinary person. Fame, infamy, it's a very strong thing. And we've seen this in other cases. I mentioned to you the Don't Fuck with Cats, Luca Magnotta documentary. Right. That was Luca Magnotta's sheer obsession with being famous, and he would do it by any means necessary. We know that Kohberger had a fascination with serial killers. A lot of us do, but there's a difference between having an interest in serial killers and actually going out and becoming one. I think he was similar in a way to Ted Bundy. I think he tried to think he was the smartest guy in the room, and now he can be infamous. He'll get a bunch of letters. I'm sure, be offered to do a documentary or some sort of interview someday. I think for him, this is a consolation prize.
Yeah, I mean, we know that he was super fascinated with Ted Bundy to the point where after, the murders occurred, he's Googling them and he's looking himself up in the same type of vein. It's like he very clearly was not just like, oh, I'm going to go do this one thing and just, casually go back to being a student and get my PhD. I think that he, when we started hearing that the state of Idaho was going to, reinstate the firing squad of the death penalty and not just use the lethal injection, and how he is the type of person that, he really didn't want to face the death penalty. And there are two types of criminals, and I don't know if we'll ever know what makes you one or the other, but it's like there's the criminals who do these types of things, and their worst nightmare is to have to die at the hands of the state, right? They don't want the death penalty. They're okay living the rest of their life behind bars because they don't have any empathy. They're sociopaths. And then there's the other side where somebody, which, and again, I would never, ever be a murderer, but I know that I would rather just die. Like, don't send me to life in prison. I don't want to eat shitty food and be locked up and never see my family and all this kind of thing. Just kill me and get it over with. And that's kind of the easy way out.
But Casey, hold on a second. You have to remember though, you're trying to think like a normal person.
That's true.
These are not normal people. These are people who have major issues that, again, they don't think like you.
No, well, and that's where he is. You're absolutely right. This was a consolation prize for him. And while I do think that, down the road, I think that, the families will look at this and be like, at least he said out loud he was guilty. He said he did it. It wasn't just like he maintained his, shitty alibi of stargazing and he was innocent and all that, it wasn't. And then the jury still found him guilty. He admitted to it, but now he's going to go because he is so egotistical and so psychotic and such a sociopath that he doesn't want somebody else to kill him. He wants the power. And I said this the other day to you, and I truly believe it. It was like, state of Idaho, you're not going to kill me. Someone else is not going to kill me. I did the killing, and I'm just going to go live my life in prison and be fine with it. Because we've seen these, blog entries and all these things that he had over the years where he literally said, I can do anything without feeling any type of consequence. I don't feel bad for anything that I do. And whether it was because he was dealing with visual snow or he was addicted to heroin or whatever it may be, that's who this person is. And he just wanted to maintain power, which is the entire story of Bryan Kohberger. He never had it with women. He was an incel. He was somebody who just desperately wanted this attention. Then he goes and commits these heinous, heinous crimes, has this power. And now it's like, well, I might have done it, but you can't do shit about it. Fine. Throw me behind bars, whatever. I'm going to live my life out. And that's what he is getting, which is why these families are pissed, because he can still live his life out.
Right. And again, like when we look at people like this, this guy, I think, and this will never be used, but there's a tinge of mental illness with this guy. Like normal people don't do shit like this, right? I mean, but I think you said the word egotistical. He's a very egotistical guy, very, I think, defiant. I mean, they also said he was angry. He was almost proud though, too, and that leads into like, why did he do this, right? Why does a person say, okay, I'm going to go just kill, for the most part, random people? I did mention, I think a lot of it was he was trying to do that perfect crime and get away with it. And he, for a second, wasn't that far off.
It's crazy.
That said, he dropped the knife sheath. And that, I wonder how he stayed so defiant for so long, because the sheath was very concerning, if you will. But I also think it's more to just do with the fact that he is an incel. I think that's about as easy as it comes. And we've seen this a lot in criminal cases. I mean, we've seen very high profile people. Elliot Rodgers, a prime example of people who are they have so many issues with attractive people who are doing well. It almost eats at them, right? And I got to get back at them. I got to get back at the girl that won't date me. I got to get back at the couple who I wish I could be, but I'm not. I got to get back at the people who are having sex daily and I'm not. Why not me? Why do they get to do it and I can't? It's almost relatable to, there's a theory in hoods everywhere, Casey. It's called the crab in a barrel theory. It's, why can he do this, but I can't? So I'm going to go I'm going to kill him. I don't like what he's doing. So if I can't have it, neither can he. And it's,
Lowe's knows July $10.
Also had that infamous thought, and it kind of relates.
Lowe's.
We see it a lot with like school shooters and stuff. Most school shooters, when the manifestos come out, it's not really I did it because I don't like this person or these kind of people. I wanted to be well known, right? I wanted to live forever. I wanted someone to finally take notice of me. And that's why I've always been so against, like, when a school shooting happens, discussing the perpetrator, because that's exactly what they want. People want to be known for these sick crimes because, as you and I've talked about, there's going to be a certain group of social rejects on the internet that will write these people. I'm sure down the road, Bryan Kohberger will get married. Sure of it. You know, we've seen Chris Watts, the guy who killed his own family and children. He gets inundated with mail, you know. These people that worship people like this, you know, are sick. They're sick people. They're lonely people. There's a difference between research and, like, you know, writing prisoners and trying to marry them and stuff. Like, it's bizarre. And I think he got all that into one. And it kind of relates back to the consolation prize. I think for him, that'll be the next, you know, 50 years of his life or so are going to be tough, but they're going to be on his terms. He doesn't they don't choose when he dies. He does, which, you know, you talked about. Him having that control is what he always wanted.
Yeah, that's part of this whole thing, is that in his mind, you know, he is getting away with it to a certain degree because he doesn't feel bad. It's not like he's going to be living every day in that jail cell, that prison cell, being like, shit, I can't believe I did this to these families. He doesn't care, which is why he is so evil and why he is so, you know, just absolutely broken brain to where people like us can't wrap our head around it. But like going back to the fact that he was Googling Ted Bundy, who is one of the most infamous serial killers, who was also known as, like, you know, arguably attractive guy who was targeting these young women. There is something about that. And we've now learned that, you know, he was searching porn of women tied up, women passed out, all that type of stuff. And it's like, that's another thing too, is, you know, we talked about it the day that the plea hearing happened. The prosecution fumbled in that as well. I mean, I understand it's, you know, a lot of emotion going into it. You know, this isn't some high profile prosecution firm and whatever, but, you know, the lead guy says, well, there wasn't any intent for sexual malice, or whatever the term that he used. And I think he meant to say there was no physical evidence, that none of the 3 girls who were murdered had any evidence there was any sexual component to it. But it's very clear what he was doing. He was targeting these young women for a sexual purpose. And whether he planned to do something like that or not, that was part of this, because he very clearly was wanting that. I mean, even like the girl that apparently went on a Hinge date with him, and he said, you know, I had a great time on the date. You have great birthing hips. And you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? You know, he talks just the very big time obsession he had with not only women that he couldn't get, that he wanted, that another serial killer who was known for targeting and having sex with the women that he killed. It's like, this guy is just one of those people that one letter from a woman in prison that says, I believe you, you know, you were overlooked your whole life, I'll love you, that makes his entire life. And that's so fucked up. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't always want to always say the same stuff with all the stuff that I talk about, but this is all very similar in a way. Like, this is no different from, like, there's just certain types of people, and you and I are regular, and most of the people listening to this are regular, but there's a certain other group of people that they're either doing something for money or for power or for respect or for love or for admiration or for obsession or for whatever. And those people do not think the same way we do. So yeah, this does sound like a really bad life, right? Who would want to sit in a Supermax facility that I'll talk about in a second, you know, for the next 50 years? But again, it's not about that. You know, who would willingly stand up and say, you know, shoot me in the head, do what you got to do. You know, I'm not snitching, or I'm not doing that. Like, most people wouldn't do that, but there's a certain level of whether it's a code or a way of life that these people live by. And he also, as you and I've talked about, Bryan Kohberger does not have empathy. He does not have, you know, it's when he goes on a date, it's what can you do for me? It's not, or what will you do for me by any means necessary. He also doesn't have, like, he doesn't have remorse. Do you think he has remorse? No way.
None. Like, I think that he is so void of all of those things, which is why it is shocking to me. I mean, I guess shocking is not the word, but it is very obvious to me that, like, this defense along the way, you know, like you said, there was, you know, they tried to say there could have been another suspect, that the FBI didn't look at other blood and other DNA found, that he was stargazing, that, all these different things. It's like, if he has no remorse and no empathy, then why did it take so long for him to finally sit up and say, yeah, I'm guilty? And that's why I understand where the frustration from the families come in, because it's like, at least if there was a trial, even though he would never say he's sorry, because he's not sorry, even though he would ever say, like, I wish I wouldn't have done this, because he's glad he did it. But why? We're not going to get those answers. Where is the knife? Where's the murder weapon? Who were you targeting? All those different questions that could have potentially come out in a trial, they're never going to now, because he was offered a plea deal and he doesn't give a shit. Because
what's interesting though is he does have a tad of empathy to his parents, right? Because I believe that he is absolutely taking a plea, because there's also been
Lowe's knows for just 10
throughout this criminal trial or leading up, she didn't want him to take a plea. She was opposed to a plea. And then I think they probably said, you know what? All right, you don't want to play ball. We could get you on certain things. We could get you on, obstruction. We could get you on all sorts of things, and you're going to go to jail. So stop playing hardball and get him to do what we want him to do. We don't care if he tells us anything, but we want him to admit to this. And I think in the end, that was the small amount of empathy that he had. Now, the question that I think you know what? I'm not going to ask, but it also does look in, Casey, to the love of a parent and a child to a parent, right? Where his parents were looking to overlook the fact that he likely brutally murdered kids, young women. I firmly believe that they had some sort of knowledge. I mean,
they had to at least have an idea, right? I mean,
his sister had even mentioned he was vigorously cleaning his vehicle. Like, and you look at the fact of, like, throw in, he did have the same vehicle, for God's sake.
Well, and he, the Howard Bloom book, The Requiem for the Idaho Murders, like it very, in depth goes through that cross-country drive that, his dad flies from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, drives back, not even a month after this happens. And you see, two different, stops by the police for, quote, tailgating. Now, what we've learned is that obviously the FBI was following him all the way back to their home. But, you see the look in his dad's eyes, you see the look in Bryan Kohberger's eyes, and you have to believe that, like, there had to be some inclination that this was going on. And the way his dad just kind of would, like, yap to the police, right? Like, we see these body cam footage and he's just like, oh, well, this, and this. And it's like, it almost was like he was in denial of what could potentially be going on. Because here's my thing. There's no way that within 10 minutes of each other, two different traffic stops for tailgating, that if you're a rational human being, you've got to be like, how are we getting pulled over again? By the way, they are looking for a car that my son's driving. By the way, he was 10 minutes away from where these happened. By the way, he's been a fucking weirdo his whole life. Like, they had to have known all this stuff, or at least thought, right?
Yeah, it's all very, like, coincidental. I definitely think that's the main reason that a plea was offered. I think they had always wanted a plea. Listen, I mean, any state, federal group, I mean, this is how the federal government has a 98% conviction rate. They don't convict 98%. Literally every case is plead, right? The government comes to you and says, hey, Casey, we know you were selling narcotics. We can just get you on conspiracy because we know and we've done all the work. Here's what you can do. You can either take a plea. We'll give you 6 years. You could go to, court and fight it. And if we win, we'll give you football numbers. You get out in 30 years, or you can cooperate and you're a dead woman regardless. So what do you want to do? So they're always going to do that. And that's why, like, pleas are always very good, because the statistics are given to you. There's an end of the case. The person's always going to go to jail. And for them, and I go back to kind of the kind of wrapping this up, and the only people that in the end miss out are the families of these people, right?
I think that you've got to feel so bad for them. And I mean, you've said that from, the day that we heard the plea hearing. It is like, we, from a standpoint from me, who has no actual personal connection to this case, like, I'm like, thank God he actually admitted out loud that he's guilty, because I think that the fact that here's a question for you going into that. How long do you think that his defense team knew that he did it? How long do you think Ann Taylor knew? Do you think the whole time?
I mean, that's always a question that I have with a lot of things. Because again, like I think all of us will speculate whether he did it or not. But like for her, I don't think any attorney that defends criminals, like I don't think they really care, to be honest. Like
That's a good point.
her goal is like
Get him off.
Like we look at O.J. Simpson, like I think it's probable that he killed Ron Goldman and Nicole what was her name? Brown, right? What was her name?
Right. Yeah, Nicole Brown
Simpson Brown.
By the way, again, maybe this is where I should never be selected for jury trial. Like I'm like, he absolutely did it. Give me 0 seconds to deliberate. He did it. You know, it's like I'm like, I don't need to see anything.
Well, yeah, and I think like that's a good point. But like I think for her, like, did she have her own personal opinion? Probably, but her thought was, I think, a lot similar to mine. Okay, I don't really care regardless. I want to look at what I know, and I want to look at proving against that, right? So
but that's what's so frustrating is like, you said the families end up missing out on it. And it's been, I can imagine 2.5 just brutally hard years. And it's like, if you were going to end up pleading guilty anyways, and like watching that, watching not only him say, yeah, I did it, but to each and every count, to each and every name, to each and everything, and saying, I'm guilty because I am guilty, all those things. It's like, why stretch this out for so long and make these families? So that's what made me the angriest. That's what, like, watching that, it was like, so you were just going to admit that you did this anyways, right? You were just going to say out loud, yeah, I killed all 4 of these innocent kids who were just living their lives and had just started to live their adult lives. And then you still put these families through 2.5 years of waiting. And right before the trial is set to happen, you're like, yeah, fuck it, I did it. Throw me in prison.
Well, that goes back to his control stuff. Like,
right. But that's where, like, the defense, it's like, what were you doing trying to make up all this dumb shit? Stargazing when it's a blizzard and it's 4 a.m. on a cloudy night. Get real. Like, what are we doing?
I think for them, they were just trying to present, like they were trying to be defense attorneys. But I get what you're saying. I think, though, this is what shows you that Bryan Kohberger is a very cold, sadistic, depraved person, where they're generally, when you like look at a courtroom, right, you see these young kids, right, they're smiling and laughing about killing people. Like, they're phonies, they're frauds, they're just trying to look cool or whatever. This is like, you look at his demeanor, that's like a real cold, callous dude, right? Like, he just sits there and is like, yes, or nods his head. Like, he wasn't trying to put on a show. It was just like, you know what, I am who I am. Do you think in his head he was thinking like, oh my God, I can't, like, maybe eventually he'll say to himself, like, what the fuck did I do here? But right now it's, he's living on cloud 9 in his infamy head as far as, what he did. Now we look at,
I don't think he'll ever care. I think the only thing he probably is thinks about is the fact that he left the knife sheath. I truly do believe that. Like, I think
that's true. Yeah.
Like, I think that in his mind, he's like, and maybe, again, if you think back in retrospect, like maybe go get another car or something because of all the different videos that showed his car there, at the scene. But he wasn't, there's no video of him, but I don't think that he will ever care. I think that had he not admitted to guilt, and if, God forbid, somehow the jury didn't convict him, I think he planned on doing it again. I think that there was something in his head that thought he had gotten away with it. And maybe that is why he tried to fight it. But like you said at the very beginning of this, and it's been very clear from the get-go, whether it was in Moscow, whether it was in Boise, it seemed like nobody really wanted to have anything to do with this trial because it was so gruesome and there was so much attention on it. Tearing down 1122 King Road, I thought was one of the worst decisions. I know the families didn't want it. That right there tells you they weren't really taking into consideration what the families wanted, because we've seen in other criminal cases, the jury gets to walk through the crime scene and they get more of an idea. Tearing the house down basically said, we don't even want you to have that option. We want this away. We want this behind us. So the whole thing ends up coming to, like, this was the easiest decision for the state of Idaho. It was the easiest decision for the prosecution, the judge, the defense, and the only people that will suffer from this are the families, and this is not what they wanted. But Bryan Kohberger will never care that he did it. He would have tried to do it again, and I think that's why this is a sad ending for them. And I mean, maybe on the 23rd, when the sentencing happens, maybe they have to have him say something. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Well,
but
they will offer him a chance to speak.
Which I mean, you don't think he would unless he's forced to, right?
I actually think that I think he will speak. Is he
You do?
genuine? Yeah, if he is genuine, I don't know. I wouldn't imagine he will be. I do actually think he will say sorry for it. I do.
Oh,
Does he
God,
mean it?
that'll infuriate me.
Yeah, does he mean it? Probably.
Well,
I
no.
don't think.
But
But
here, and you may know more about this than me. This is something that, again, I didn't pay attention to until up until last week. So I know that in different states they have different laws, but like, would there be a scenario where Judge Hippler says, hey, I'm going to, because he's already accepted the plea, but like when it comes to sentencing, like in this interim until we get to the 23rd, could they make him, whether it's public or not, say, hey, here, this is where I threw the knife?
no,
They can't. Okay. See,
no.
that's what pissed me off.
So
as the
there's
parents.
case in point. There's an individual currently on Indiana death row, William Clyde Gibson, a very, very concerning dude, probably killed dozens of people, right? He gave an interview to the BBC about 5 years ago, and he said, I absolutely killed multiple people that they don't know about. I'll never say where they are. I'll never say who they are. You don't have, no, I mean, it's fucked up, but yeah, no, they don't have to say anything. And he's one of the, he's a William Clyde Gibson type. He's never going to say anything. I could have him totally wrong, and maybe he'll come out and say everything and just be like, you know what, it's hampering me. I need to get it off my chest. I guess my whole thing is, and I go back to why he accepted the plea and why I think it absolutely has to do with his family, because to me, in terms of if I were him,
Mulch bags
in prison, because when you look at the state of Idaho, Casey, they have currently 9 people on death row, all men, and actually, sorry, 1 female as well. But they've only executed 3 people since 1977 when they enacted the death penalty. You look at some of the people currently on death row. An individual, Thomas Creech, he was received, which means he went to that prison in 1983.
Jesus.
Where he was convicted of beating to death an inmate in another institution. So he's been there since 1983. You look at several others. A guy, Timothy Dunlap, convicted in 1992 of first-degree murder of killing a woman during a bank robbery. These people have sat there for a long time. You look at the one female, Robin Rowe. She's been there since 1993 after she killed and set the fire of her home that killed her husband, son, and daughter. These people have sat and sat and sat. And with the appeals process, you can draw this out for long periods of time. And this is not a state like Texas. Texas executes someone like monthly.
Right.
This is not the state of Texas. That's why, again, I have to believe this had something to do with his family. And I'm guessing they were going to throw the fucking book at the family and say, not only will we put you on the stand, we will criminally charge you and we will give you the fucking max. Don't screw with us here. We want a plea. Now, people are going to say, where will Bryan Kohberger go? He's only going to go to one place. The state of Idaho has one supermax. It is called the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. This is the highest level. Bryan Kohberger will never see a low or like some kind of medium security. It's never going to happen. This is one of the worst prisons in America. It confines the most violent offenders that the state of Idaho has. This is going to be a 23-in-1 facility. When he leaves his cell, he'll be shackled and handcuffed. He will work out in basically a cage outside. This is the worst level of incarceration you're going to have. And this is a state facility, which means this is the worst time you can do. In the feds, you at least have, it's at least a little cleaner, things like that. This is the worst of the worst. So if you wanted Bryan Kohberger to suffer, he is going to suffer. And I think the one thing I'll end this with is I talked, Casey, to an individual about a month ago. He was in the ADX Supermax. It is the highest level federal facility this country has. The worst people in this country go to it, terrorists, cartel bosses. He was there for approximately 2.5 years. And he told me, he said, it wasn't the time. It was the lonely fact that like I didn't see someone for days on end, months on end, and like everything about you deteriorates, your vision, your mental, everything. It's the, being alone, like truly being alone, right? And Bryan Kohberger is going to have, and what they'll do is they'll fuck with his mail, they'll mess with him, like that's just how it's going to go, and that's a just end for him.
Yeah, I agree. And that, again, I will never speak for any type of victim or victim's family because I don't know how that feels. And, obviously I hope I never do. But I do hope just for their sake of, and they'll never have real closure. They'll never have real peace. I mean, how could they? But that down the road, once all the media calms down and once, we kind of pick up and move on to the next true crime thing, that they'll be able to look back and they'll be like, hey, it sucks that we waited all this time and we didn't get any of the answers and we didn't go through a trial, but at least we know he's rotting away in a shithole place like that. And that there is absolutely no way the prosecution could have messed this up. There's no way that there's somebody on the jury that, to be quite frank, says, hey, I have reasonable doubt and I can't put this man away, in prison for the rest of his life or put him on death row. That this is a just end. It just sucks because you're a normal person and I'm a normal person and we see it a different type of way. But at the end of the day, like this to me is a win for people to say, hey, he's never going to be able to do something like this again. He's never going to be able to hurt somebody again, to kill somebody again, to lust after somebody again, whatever it may be. And hopefully one day the families do feel a little bit of peace with that. It just sucks because it feels like he got his way to a certain
I think what will happen though, Casey, and this is something that I don't think anyone will really tell you. I think the one issue that he's going to have is twofold. Number one, I think they're going to have a real hard time. Like, I'll ask you this. Let's say you're at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. Would you want to house with this guy?
Absolutely not.
Would you want this guy in your cell? I mean,
no. And you know what? Not only that, like, I mean, you don't want that, but also just like you talk about criminals wanting notoriety. Like you think about the criminals that are in there that no one gives a shit about, right? That everyone's forgotten about. And they look at this guy and they're like,
that was going to be my second point.
Yeah. Like who are you? This, this very generic white looking guy who's just like, oh, you just killed.
I think he'll check in, which means I think he'll say that his life is at risk and he needs to be in PC, protective custody. That's why I say his life is going to be really lonely because I think he'll have to be in PC because I don't know how they like, he's like a guy who like, there are very few people that are like him, not on death row. Like that's my kind of point here.
Right.
I think, and you made a good point. Like he did kill women, right? Like he's like, I would think he'd have to fear for his life and check into PC. I would think
you would have to, because I do think, I mean, granted, you hear a lot of times with, like criminals who are charged with crimes against children that usually like Gen Pop takes care of them. These were obviously adults, but they were still very young adults. They were still college kids. And there's still the element of like, these three young girls who, and then obviously Ethan Chapin being kind of collateral damage because he just happened to be there with his girlfriend. Like, I think that there is an element where it's like, there are gonna be a lot of people that are like, hey man, what the fuck? But I do believe that he is going to be, I mean, I think he's a coward. I think that he, obviously he wasn't cowardly to go kill those people, but he's a coward. He didn't want to face death row. You're absolutely right. He's going to be cowardly and say, oh, I'm in danger. And it's just like, this guy is just going to have to live for the rest of his life, hoping somebody else doesn't do what Steve Gonsalves wants to do to him, what these families want to do to him. And it's not going to be easy, but he doesn't have to be killed by, a firing squad. And that's what he's scared of because he's a coward.
Well, and that's the thing. I think you make a really good point. At the end of the day, like he is, he's a tough guy in terms of killing, innocent people, but he's not a gangster. Right?
No,
he's not, he would get, like when he goes to upstate, like that's really where I think it's going to hit him. Now, I will say the difference between him and I think a lot of the gangster types is he's just a crazy motherfucker, right? Like he's just crazy. Like but people that kill people in the street, like a lot of them are doing it for like a monetary reason or, whatever. Like he's just did it because he's fucking crazy.
But yes, he's fucking crazy. And all that, like, I mean, even that story they had on Dateline, like just that little detail that was like so just haunting to me about how he had the female colleague who he was moving stuff around in her apartment not hurting her, but moving stuff around. And then like, she started noticing it and all that. Like this was all a power play on women who he believed he had power over. Like these are going to be big, tough criminal dudes. These are going to be gangsters. These are going to be guys that don't give a shit. And he's going to come in and you're like, oh, this big, tough guy who targeted these college age girls, these tiny little blonde and brunette girls that couldn't defend themselves. Well, we're not those people. And that to me is something, as like, you watch Steve Gonzalez get so frustrated and you watch, and I know I mentioned this the other day, like it's a Hollywood movie, but Law-Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler, like that's the type of feeling that I would have as a parent if that happened. He's going into a place where those criminals are like, yeah, I'm not a 19-year-old blonde-headed girl, dude. Like I'm not a 21-year-old girl that was just excited to show off my Range Rover. Like you're messing with real criminals here, buddy. Like,
and most of the people that are in, those, they're already lifers as well. So it's redundant even, I think this is why, like, you make a good point. If it were me, I'd try to get in contact with one of them and say, look, I'll send you 10 G's. Get rid of this fuck and make it real bad, and I wouldn't care if I went to prison, I just, whatever. But I think what will happen is when he goes in finally upstate, like when he's sentenced and everything, he'll go through, which is what every inmate goes through, like a psychiatric consultation. That facility, I believe, has approximately 30-ish beds for mental illness prisoners doing life. I think he'll be in something like that. Like he's not a normal like this is a person. I think we'll find out that he has major mental problems. And they'll put him in some sort of like life, like mental ward, like, which it will be really bad. And that's where he'll be. But I agree. I think he's in danger with some of the real tough guys in there. So,
well, and that's the hope, right? Is that if there is like this power trip of, oh, well, you're not going to kill me on my terms, so that somebody else just says, oh, okay, well, and I'll just stab you to death because I can, and I don't care either. So it is a sad ending for the families that he gets to plea out, and it's not, he gets to walk and potentially do something else. And, with all the fascination around this case and all the conspiracy theories and, the evidence or the lack of evidence, whatever, like it's still, you still with his own voice heard him say he did it. And that to me,
Lowe's knows July $10.
Ben, but it's just awful because these kids are never going to get to live again. And it's just awful and tragic that evil like this exists in the world. And I just, I wish the best for the families, and I don't know how you get peace from it, but at least this is over from this chapter. Now they can move forward. Hopefully.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And, I also, it is very sad in terms of them because they also didn't really have a say. It was just kind of done, which,
and that's what, that's what I'm saying. They didn't, two families said they're okay with it. Two families didn't, but you go back to the tearing down of the house. None of those families wanted that, and they did it anyways.
Yeah.
The plea hearing starts with Judge Hippler condemning, they didn't say the name, but condemning the Gonzalez family for saying, oh, you should call and ask for him not to accept the plea, all these different things. Like it was never about these families. And that's why they have every right to be upset with the state of Idaho, upset with how it all was handled. But at least you got the voice of that awful man saying, yes, I did it. And now they don't have questions of who did it. They have questions of why. And they have questions of, how could this happen to our children? But at least you have that. And it's not a jury saying, well, we think he did it, let's throw him away. At least he admitted it with his voice.
Agreed. Now, as you said, the sentencing in this case would be July 23rd. So, about, a couple of weeks away. And that will be the end. There won't be any appeals, which is something that's nice about a plea. That'll be that. And in a year from now, 2 years from now, I think he'll be in a much different state of mind. It's all easy now to be, the infamous one, but that eventually it'll set in. That's that. A weird ending to this case. But the good thing is Bryan Kohberger is going to pay.
Okay, so that's the end of that. Let me take this stuff down. Let's see. Oh, I have my camera off. There we go. Okay. Sit back in my chair a little bit there. All righty. So that was the podcast. I thought it was pretty interesting. Just a different take. They cussed a lot, but that's fine with me. I cuss a lot, it seems like. But I wanted to show you a picture of the lawyer for Bryan Kohberger's family. This is him right here. He looks like a Jim. Also, there's new documents that just came out. I might come back on tonight and read them. If not, I'll be on tomorrow to read them. They're just declarations for people. Like, they're just saying that they want the non-dissemination order to be vacated. So it's nothing like huge or anything like that. But, we always like to read through the documents on this channel. We've read through all of the documents so far, so we're not going to stop now. But they are pretty long. Some of them, like one of them's like 40 pages. So I'm going to go through them and see like what's important and what's, just redundant. And then we'll, explore those on the next live. Also, I wanted to show you some pictures of Kohberger. I don't know if you saw these, but this is him walking into court. And then there's a couple pictures like where Anne is like has her hand on him. And like, I don't know if he was about to like go crazy or something or what, but these are the pictures here. Like, he looks right here, these eyes. I would be scared. I mean, like, ugh. And then this one. Can you imagine being Ann Taylor and seeing that person looking at you like that? Even the cops looking down. He's like, I want nothing to do with this. He does look like Bundy. The more I look at him, the more I think he does too. He is like our lifetime Bundy. Like, I think it was 70s, in the 70s Bundy did what he did. I know my mom was like in her 20s when that happened, or like, early 20s. And I remember her saying like she's like, he was so charismatic, and she's like, women really fawned over him. And I'm like, well, I think it was his confidence too. Like his confidence, like he was his own lawyer. He's like, I'm gonna be my own lawyer. Like, that didn't work out for him, did it? But yeah, we'll go over those tonight. And then the Gonzalez's did put some pictures up of the girls, of them like swimming and stuff. And it just says 11 years ago today, the good old days. Our kids enjoying the lake, sun, boat, and each other's company. These are cherished times. Love you both so much. Very, very sweet. And if you weren't here yesterday for the live, I think everybody was here though yesterday. I did get my nails done purple for Xana's birthday. And then I was thinking about it yesterday. July 19th is my mom's birthday. So her favorite color was purple. So look at that. I can use it for both. But yeah, I'm kind of digging the purple. I'm not a purple fan usually, but I think these are cute. These are cute. But thank you guys for being here for me, or being here with me today, or for me, whatever, same thing. I might be back on tonight. I'm not sure. If I am, you'll see the thumbnail pop up. I'll put it on the community tab as well. But thank you guys for being here today. I'm going to let the dogs out if they're wake up. One's awake, one's passed out on the floor. She's so cute. What are you doing? Hello. Riley, hello. She's like, I'm sleeping on the floor. I gave her a blanket. She's all cuddled up with it. We need to get them new beds. They had those gray beds, like the donut beds. And I washed them and I dried them, and I dried them too much to where they were just like, they didn't look good. So Vincent found some that look like our couch. We just need to order them. So that way they have, new beds. Because they're usually on the couch or the bed anyway. They go wherever they want. They do what they want. So thank you guys again for being here with me today. I do appreciate it so much. I will see you guys either this evening at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time like we normally do, or I'll see you tomorrow around the same time. So thank you guys so much again for being here. I do appreciate it. If you guys don't mind, take a second, hit the like on your way out. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do. We do talk all things true crime. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to all the content, because I do put out videos, and I put out a short last night. I do put out videos, and then we do, lives. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.
lights lit this town like a fire in a blaze. Gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to live this out. We got this far, don't know how.